your friendly neighborhood PhD, and you're listening to the TyePod. Hey everybody, it's another episode of the TyePod. Today I'm joined by Allie Corbin, who is a Miss Wheelchair. I know you were involved with that at one point in California, and you're doing all kinds of like super cool artistic, things going on with your social media accounts. So, like I've been checking out some of the work you're doing recently. It looks really cool. So it's good to have you on.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm kind of known as someone who's, I always say I'm a professional amateur. I'll
Yeah.
try pretty much anything at least once. And then, I just think that throwing yourself into things is how you learn, what you do, what you don't like. So yeah, I was Miss Wheelchair California 2025. I'm technically still Miss Wheelchair America first
Yeah.
runner-up and lead ambassador 2026. It's a mouthful. Um, but yeah, and all kinds of other things led to me being where I'm at with social media. And yeah, it's a wicked road, but I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Do you feel like that the disability and everything and like going through the diagnosis, like how do you feel like that pairs with social media and like, sharing your story in that way?
Gosh, I feel like it's a double-edged sword, right? Like there's so much benefit that can come from social media. And I think a lot of the times as patrons or people who are consuming media, we often forget how much weight is put on those who are the creators, who are the ones making the content for the public, because we don't get a paycheck right away, right? You have to like fight tooth and nail to get the following, to get the engagement, and then you have to propose all of these companies like, hey, I want to do this project. Would you like to sponsor it? So it's not like people are just like handing me money to do what I do.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. And I think that like having the diagnoses that I specifically have, it's exponentially difficult. I can't speak on anybody else's experience, but I am constantly not believed by both the non-disabled and disabled communities,
Yeah.
just fighting tooth and nail to just like be a human being instead of having to advocate. Because that's like, I think, my biggest qualm with those who have disabilities showing up
Yeah.
online and showing up in public. Like we're constantly expected to be educators and be examples and be all these things. And if you're not doing it the right way to
Yeah.
someone's, opinion, then suddenly you're, committing a crime. So I think it's been something very interesting to navigate, especially like I said, with the diagnoses I specifically have and just navigating all of the newness of my
Yeah.
symptoms that have changed this past 6 months. Um, like I've lost a lot of people in the community. Like I just don't see anymore. Reasons irrelevant. Like I think they just picture me as someone at the ability level that I was 7 months
Yeah.
ago. So
Yeah.
it's an ebb and flow. It's just, no different to anybody else's life of like you just figure it out as you go.
I mean, that's kind of all any of us are doing, I feel like. And, you know, for me, the disability community feels like a place that you think initially is embracing and empathetic and not judgmental in any way. But then the more you get into it, there's humans I mean, on both sides, good and bad. And it doesn't matter like diagnoses or not, like there's still that tendency, like there's some shitty parts of life with influencing on social media, and it's not going to go away, I don't think, anytime soon. But
No.
how do you deal with, because you are a human making mistakes and like trying things and experiencing things, and you get that judgment and even like negative crossover like from personal life to professional, like how do you deal with just like all the ups and downs like as your social media following has grown?
I mean, it's been difficult. I think that just as a human, right, as a person, without having to be on the internet, I am exceptionally forgiving. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, pat yourself on the head, Allie, like, oh, you're so no, and I don't mean it that way. I just mean like
Mhm.
I believe we're all human beings. We all deserve second chances and like, a third, fourth chance at that point, like maybe it's my mistake for trusting people. But when it comes down to like learning a new skill or learning a new culture or whatever, if you're not allowed to make mistakes, then that's when hesitancy comes in and you're pretending like, oh, well, I just won't look at that or oh, I won't talk about that. And then
Mhm.
that becomes such like an alienating experience that when it comes to social media, I do my best to remember that I am also a human being. And as long as I can give myself that grace, then I don't need it from anybody else. And I
Yeah.
don't mean that again in a gross way. It's just I think that we need to learn as a society that it's okay to give yourself grace and you don't need permission from other people to make a mistake, correct it, and then be forgiven. Like you should just be able to forgive yourself and grow as a person and
Mhm.
then set that example for somebody else. Because oftentimes I feel like we're constantly looking for representation places. While I believe it's important, don't get me wrong, a lot of the times we are expecting representation and being like,
Mhm.
oh, well, why aren't you giving me this thing? When I mean, someone has to take the first step, right? Someone has to leap into that position and be vulnerable enough to be that representation, whatever it may be. So navigating the new social side of things, like I never really know what the algorithm is going to throw me when it comes to following. Like I'll have
Mhm.
a spike in, 20 to 25-year-old women one week, and then the next week I get an explosion of men in their 40s. Like it's just,
And it's
and
just
it'll show me
unpredictable.
that. Yeah. It's like depends on like what type of content I'm putting out, obviously. And then I get people saying, well, if you didn't behave this way online, then you wouldn't have this issue. And like it's all
Mm.
subjective, right? Like I just have to be a person and let other people be curious. And when people are coming up with all of these like negative opinions or beliefs about me as a person, I do my best to just stay as neutral and understanding as possible because I get it, right? Like if someone's saying, hey, so and so online isn't good representation of this condition that you have, they're giving it a bad name, or they're not actually disabled, they're XYZ. If you have enough people saying it, why would you not believe it? It's human nature to protect yourself from other people being assholes, essentially. And so, like, I have no hard feelings for people who have bad opinions about me. I just encourage people to make their own opinions based on me in real life
Yeah.
instead of what's on the internet. Because
Yeah.
it's very easy to twist.
Well, and it's not your entire life story, what you put out on social media with content. I think a lot of people put that artificialness to it, like that's all we are.
Yeah.
And and at the end of the day, I think you're right. Like if you're comfortable and confident, and you know that you're coming from the right place of empathy and just sharing your personal expression and everything. I just think that in the end, as hard as that is, sometimes, like you validate yourself in a way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that
So yeah,
I've never actually made a video about it because it's like something that I know I'll have to phrase perfectly for me to be happy with putting it out. But there's this like, people always ask you what your hot take is, right? Like, what's your hot take or what's your whatever? Mine is a bit controversial, but only to those who are not healed or ready to hear it. And that's where it becomes like, I want to make sure that I'm saying it right. And it's that we are all as human beings responsible for our own triggers. So
mhm,
you can't point the finger and say, you hurt me, you're responsible for hurting me, when it's something that wouldn't hurt a billion other people. Now, I'm being vague on purpose, and anybody who's listening to this, I can almost guarantee you can think of a scenario, whether it is your race, your gender, your ability level, where you come from, culture, it doesn't matter. There's something you can apply to that concept and then go, well, no, XYZ is owed this, or oh, well, this has happened to me in my past, or my culture's past, or whatever. I hear all of that. But if we're going to move forward as a society, we have to be able to control our responses to things so that we can then create better examples for the future. Because if someone says something that offends me and I go, screw you, I can't believe all of this generational blah, 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 blah,
yeah,
that person, if it's the first time saying that thing, they're not learning. All they're understanding is your whatever demographic, disability, for our example, are a bunch of assholes
yeah,
and they react too quickly. They're cruel. I don't want to speak to them. I don't want to be around them because this is how they behave. And then I often hear from the disability community specifically, well, we've been treated wrong for so long and we aren't getting the things that we deserve and we deserve to have human rights. I'm not disagreeing with those things.
right,
I just think we have to control how we're responding and reacting to those things as best as possible if
absolutely,
we want a better future. So
yeah,
that's just me.
yeah. And honestly, like I have had to look at myself. Like I didn't think that I was sort of a trigger responsive type person per se before, but like over time being on social media, yeah, I just can't help but occasionally feel like I'm being sucked into that space, and like I feel like I have to retaliate or respond back, and
Yeah.
that's like not helping really anybody either, and I think you're right. Like there is a lot of bad things that continue to happen and rights, that we obviously are not receiving and things like that. But in the end, I do think that something feels like it needs to change because I'm not sure that we're getting like the results just aren't happening. I don't feel like, and like that negative space is so easy to me to get into. But
Oh yeah, I think that's
yeah,
human nature. I think it's
yeah,
like, you've had something, some kind of wrongdoing happen to you or your community or people that you love over and over and over again, you hit burnout. And so that's when like the conversation becomes, okay, well, maybe your response is silence. Maybe your response, like your immediate reactive response, is just a pause and just sitting with it, dealing with your anger for a moment or a
yeah,
day or a week or whatever it may take, and then curating a response that you feel good about. Because oftentimes when you just react and respond, you're not going to feel good about the way that you did it in a week or a month or whatever. And sometimes people shame themselves and they just forget to even, kind of ponder on how you've
yeah, yeah,
behaved and responded to people. And then you just forget about it and you continue the cycle and you continue the cycle. And I'm owed this and I'm XYZ. So I think that it's a very difficult control to have over your own being, but I think it's extremely important to model it to other people. And a lot of the times I get like my favorite, I say favorite sarcastically. I'm sorry. I'm wickedly sarcastic, and that's the other thing people like really miss
I
about my
love
personality.
sarcasm. I love sarcasm.
And it's like some people can't pick up my sarcasm. But anyways, I I get a lot of people who say things and I just laugh because I know that that's not me. It's not who I am. I my favorite thing that I read that people say about me is she's so selfish. She only does
Oh,
anything, like everything she does is for herself or is for her own personal gain. For fuck's sake, I'm sorry. That shit blows my mind. Like, I don't have a steady income. I don't have any
yeah,
income that's like consistent at all.
which
Everything
people in
I
the
get is
disability
like,
community should appreciate. I
you
mean,
would think, but I also don't receive benefits. I don't get like I have Medi-Cal,
yeah,
and that is literally it. So to think that like I have some like, oh, she's mooching off the government, that's why she fakes her disability. Where? In
wow,
what way could that be true? And I just think that like I've always been someone who would just like give the shirt off my back. I've just always been someone who can empathize because I've lived in such
yeah,
worse conditions, like, and it that has nothing to do with my disability. It's just like my childhood and upbringing was extremely extremely rough, and I don't talk about things like that because it almost
yeah,
sounds unbelievable how horrible it was. But I just think that like you have examples in your life and you can choose to either use that example as a good example or a bad example, and it's your responsibility to
yeah.
decide which of each thing is,
And
right?
that's something you control. I mean,
Yeah,
like we
exactly.
talk about disability and I mean, even just like society in the world, our place, like there's so much shit that's just fucked up we can't control, but you can control how you respond to it,
Exactly.
like that. And you control how you share that information, how you, think of yourself through that. So I feel like you're right. That is a decision you can make.
A lot of people also, I think it's important that you just said that because it's very rare that I hear people say like that is a choice. And that's the other thing about like my positivity, or like people are like, oh, you're so toxically positive. No, I'm actually a realist, I promise you. Like I really am. But
See,
I've dealt with enough bullshit in my life. I'm gonna choose to enjoy what I have left, no matter how painful or miserable it is. Why would I want it to just be painful and miserable? Like I want to add good on top of that and
yeah.
enjoy what I have left on this earth. That doesn't sound like a crime to me.
I mean, there's plenty of miserable there, right? Like without even trying, it's gonna happen. I mean, and like that was something I wanted to ask you about too, is that from your content and your story, like you've gone like normal's not a thing. Like there's not a normal feel like a normal day with a disability. Like you've had, the experience you've had as far as, like changes that have happened physically, and then mentally with diagnoses and everything. Like, what is, I guess, not having a normal like for you?
It's something that I picked up from one of my very first physical therapists, and it made me crack up the day of, but it's a perfect way to explain what I go through on a day-to-day basis. It's like, no, I do not have a baseline, quote unquote, normal, but I do have a very predictable example to like kind of hand out to people like this is what I deal with. And it's that every single morning when you wake up, theoretically, not literally, you reach in a bag of random symptoms and you pull five out, and those are the worst. And then you pull 10 more out, and those are the ones that are in the medium degree. And then you pull out a few more, and that's your least. But you're dealing with about 100 a day. It's just a tier of how bad and how important, and what do I need to assess first each day to then go about a quote unquote normal experience of my day. There are some times where extra fall out in that first round, and I've got 10 really shitty symptoms, and now I have to decide, can I manage these 10, or is it a lay in bed kind of day and do work from bed?
Mhm.
But you just have to kind of manage out the energy that you do have. And then the other thing that is just really not talked about that is my normal and a lot of people's normals who have uteruses, which is like, I anytime I get the chance to explain this to people who were not born with a uterus, I do, because I think that it's one of those hush hush topics where like, oh, we shouldn't talk to men about this. Like, that's just mind blowing to me. But like, hormonal cycles, in my experience, have been a killer for my symptoms. So, connective tissue is something that responds to female hormones that create your cycle. So during my cycle, I get
Yeah.
really, really, really shitty symptoms, and then they're okay for like a week. But for 2.5 weeks out of the month is when my connective tissue is physically falling apart due to chemicals in my body. And you won't catch me doing much on those 2 weeks, but nobody really knows when those are other than me. So people are like, oh
Yeah.
my God, you're so capable and you're doing all of this stuff online. And I'm like, no, I did that 2 weeks ago and I harvested content so that I can
Yeah.
manage out my time. And then I get a lot of people upset. Well, oh, you batch recorded that. We deserve fresh content. I'm like, first of all,
That's
you deserve
ridiculous.
nothing. You get what you get. That's
Well,
it.
and in a lot of ways, like I mean, I don't want to say volunteering, but like you're the one that's like sharing the content. Like, why is that entitlement there?
Yeah. The
Like,
concept of our generation and younger having this weird entitlement of like, oh, I deserve this extra thing from you blows my mind for one. But it
and
really
like,
was,
what's wrong with sharing content that's been recorded weeks? I mean, like, why is that a problem? I don't get
and I mean,
it.
people share stuff from years ago. And when you watch a
Yeah.
movie, it's not like they recorded it yesterday. Like, that's just how media works. It
Yeah.
just is kind of mind blowing to people go, oh, this must have been recorded today. Like, there's editing time and
Yeah.
like, I don't
I
know,
need to
human
see you
time.
right now. Like, what are you doing right this second? I want your current daily life going on. But no, you bring up a really good point though on the hormonal changes and everything too. And I do think that's a very uncomfortable topic for especially people that don't have uteruses, to like assume or feel like they know what goes on or what you're feeling. I mean, again, talk about entitlements. Like
Yeah.
that's the shittiest form, in my opinion. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I think
it's
there's also just
just
like a section of like segment of humans that have like a privilege instead of entitlement, of just like the privilege of not having to think about those things. And then when they're finally brought up, they go, "Wait, you deal with what? Like I thought it was just PMS, or I thought it was just this, or I thought you just needed chocolate before your period." Like that's not. It's
wow.
not 1 week out of the month. It's every single week has a different situation going on. And then people, again, I say people like me because it's not like one diagnosis for me. There's a few at bay. But like I don't have a regular cycle. So sometimes my cycle is 6 weeks, sometimes it's 12, sometimes it's two. So the one time that it ends up at two, I'm doing this just within 2 weeks. Like people are like, girl, focus. What is going on? I'm like, yeah, I don't get that privilege. I just
That
ride the wave
doesn't,
and that's it.
yeah. Yeah. And so, like, okay, that brings up a good thing too that I've thought about a lot is a lot of just disability in general is not knowing or predicting what's going to happen. I mean, next week versus 5 years. Like, there's a lot of people I feel like that assume, like, well, why aren't you planning out your job? Or like, why aren't you living the American dream of you know, like years down the road? But like, can you talk about that a little bit? Like you're talking, the unpredictability of the cycle, 2 weeks
Yeah.
versus six. I mean, like there's just so much variability there. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
can you talk a little
And
bit about
it's
that?
100%. And I think that there's always a subject I come back to. I think, God, on like every podcast I talk about this, which is not on purpose, but When I got to Santa Barbara, I was homeless. My fiance and I lived in a 1987 Toyota Dolphin. It looked like it had rolled straight out of the set of Breaking Bad. Like it was
I have
just,
to say I saw the picture too.
yeah, she wasn't very cute, but it did the job, and we didn't want people breaking in, so we thought, why not just leave it ugly? But my point is, I've lived the life of like literally using bottles and doggy bags to living in a nice home in Santa Barbara. Like I've seen the black and white side of both experiences, and I never, ever, ever will have that like entitled perspective because I've never lived it. I think there's privilege to the life that I'm living right now, but there was also privilege to the life I was living in my RV. Like there's people who didn't have that. So I like to
Mm,
just constantly remind myself that what I have in the now right now is enough. And I don't have to have some fancy dream of in 5 years having a mansion. Like things and items are literally just that. They're
mm,
just things and items. They're not going to make your life substantially better unless obviously it's an adaptive piece of equipment. I'm just
yeah.
saying, like, I don't need 55 figurines on my wall in order to feel like I have purpose in life.
Right.
And so when it comes to like quote unquote planning for the future or whatever, I've found that it's been extremely difficult to prioritize myself because I toxically want to help everybody else before me. And it's something that I'm trying to work on, making sure I'm prioritizing myself, my health, my fiance's life, and just creating something for ourselves finally. Because again, I am someone who'll just give the freaking shirt off my back. I've given away
I feel
things
you.
that could have helped me when I needed them. So I think it's come down to like, what do I want my life to look like in the future? And
Yeah.
instead of aiming for it as if I'm shooting a bow and arrow 50 years in the future, I try to think, what can I change now in order to affect me in a better way tomorrow? Like, what
Yeah.
are the small things that I can affect in 2 weeks or 2 months? But thinking about like those 5 year plans we did in high school and college, like, it's just not quite as relevant to people who
No.
have disabilities that it fluctuates so hard. If you just learn to create shorter term plans that can then maybe build into those bigger things, I just truly believe that that's the happiest for me that I can be. So like what
Mhm.
happens happens, what comes comes, and we just deal with it as it goes. You know what I mean? Like it's
Right.
just you can't predict it.
And to be honest, people with that aren't disabled currently, or just day to day, like anything can sort of drop on any list at any given moment. So I don't the 5 year plan and stuff is cool, but there needs to be like like a day to day, like living your life and enjoying it right now type
Yeah.
of approach. And I think that that's something I feel like I learned to appreciate really quickly, and I think you have too. I think a lot of our community is really good at that for the most part. Yeah, but that's really it's nice to get your honest take on that, because I just feel like there's so much that is sort of imposed on us by people and like by society in general. Like this is how life goes, and it's not predictable that way.
Yeah.
It's not.
Exactly. You can make a
Yeah,
perfect plan and it could all be crushed tomorrow. I think we all have heard like the you could get hit by a bus tomorrow
of course,
analogy.
right.
And like I think a lot of us as humans before disability, or maybe if you were born with a disability and it hasn't progressed, whatever, like that part of us goes, yeah, sure, I hear what you're saying. But to actually relate to it is very difficult until you have something kick you in the
That
ass
is
when you're down.
exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. It's easy to talk about until it happens. Yeah.
Yep.
So actually I wanted to ask you about when you were I think you were hospitalized like last year, I want to say, with a virus or several
Yeah.
viruses.
So wicked concept. I was in the emergency room for quite a while, but I wasn't actually admitted because I asked to go home. Um, my conditions aren't well known enough for doctors to, in my opinion, make on the spot, on the fly decisions if I'm not conscious and me trust them. Like I've a very
Ooh, that's
hard
such a good
time with
point.
that. So I had COVID. I was not in need of a vent or anything. I made sure that I was stable. I got liquids, I got hydration. But like the whole like I'm dying, can't breathe kind of dramatic effect of COVID all happened right here in this bed. And it was my fiance taking care of me. But it
Wow.
wasn't just one virus. By the time I made it to the hospital, I was on virus three. And that was when
Mhm.
I was like, I just don't like I don't know what to do anymore.
And do you
I
think that was
thought,
like COVID like resurgent, or was it like separate?
No, it was separate. So the first thing I got was like a quick, like hit you and then goes away virus. I have no idea what it was. It was something respiratory-ish, but it definitely was not COVID. I tested, it was negative. And then I have chronic sinusitis on my left side where it's just like a consistent, what they are calling sinus infection, but I've had it since I was a kid. And
Mhm.
it's kind of like this blocked off section of my sinuses. Eventually I'll have surgery. It's just not a priority, but every time I get sick, it kind of like pisses it off. And so I ended up with a really bad sinus infection, which then became an ear infection, which then almost was turning into pneumonia. I had walking pneumonia, which we were able to get down and it was fine. But then because my immune system was so shot, I ended up catching COVID. I hadn't left my house. Like that was what was crazy is I didn't come and go, but other people have been in other parts of the house and then someone touches something and then you know what I
Then
mean? So it was just a
eventually, yep.
trickle effect. And then once I ended up with COVID, I couldn't stay conscious. My headache was so bad, I physically couldn't see. Um, I explain it as like seeing through static. It was very strange. Like, obviously, like, yes, I was having visual input. It wasn't black, but I
That's such
couldn't,
a good
like,
metaphor. Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was very strange. And it was something I've only ever experienced when I've had COVID. I've had COVID 3 times, and it's made my conditions worse each time. So yeah, it was just very difficult. And the hardest part of all of it is I was dropping weight like nothing. I could not keep weight on. I could eat food, but I couldn't actually absorb nutrition, which is a
Hmm.
very, very big issue for me. So I dropped, I don't remember the exact number. I'm sure if someone's listening to this that follows me will correct me, but it was something along the lines of like 11 pounds in a week.
I can feel the correction already coming. Yeah.
I know, right? They're constant.
Yeah.
They keep me honest, I
They
guess, because
fact
like I don't
check you.
know.
Yep. Yep. But no, that you brought up a really good point there too, that I experienced it too, is that when you're not fully conscious or aware in a medical ER type setting, like how do you have you don't have any input in what they're
Yeah,
doing half the time. And I
yeah.
remember waking up like I woke up with a tube down my throat, like I'd had all this stuff done and probably like a fractured hip at that point. And like I'm waking up, like becoming conscious and realizing, oh, I didn't have any say in this. So like what what do you think the answer to that is? Do you think ER should like have more vigilance, like maybe wait to make decisions until you are
No, I mean,
conscious? I
obviously
mean,
there's life-saving decisions that have to be made on the fly, and like those are
right.
ones we have to live with. But whenever there's a choice and it's more of a impatience is kind of what I'm referring to,
Mhm.
then I choose to go home. If it's I need a ventilator, that's different. And I'm gonna
Yeah.
make sure that my fiance is there speaking up for me, or like I have at least someone to advocate for not making super idiotic decisions.
Yeah.
But because when I say with these quotation marks, like this is where it's so confusing. My conditions, it's dumb, but all of the things that I have combined with each other, I have overlapping symptoms, I
Yep.
have overlapping diagnoses. If on one day certain things are affecting me harder than the others, and they're not necessarily an emergency, but they do read emergency in an emergency room, things can happen quickly. So my heart rate can go as high as 220 and as low as 30, which in an emergency room, if you're just laying there, is terrifying, and they're
Yeah.
gonna do something about it and pump you with meds. Those medications I can randomly be allergic to and experience anaphylaxis. So it's just like a
Yep.
series of events where I'm like, what is the safest option for me as a person? Well, I mean, I live close enough to a hospital. I'm not like living in boonies. I live close
Mhm.
enough to a hospital. If something emergency does happen, I know that I'll make it there. So I personally would rather not be in the hands of people who could just make split second decisions without checking with my fiance first,
Right.
because they won't if it's
And only
life
you
saving.
know, I mean, like you know your symptoms in your body and your like day-to-day
Yeah.
feeling, and like someone else could have some or all of the same diagnoses, and it's like there just should not be that assumption that
Yep.
that necessarily, oh, this is always the way to go with these procedures. I mean,
Yeah. And
and
I
and
mean,
like you
spinal
said,
cord injuries.
allergies, like all the things.
Yeah, and I don't
Yeah,
have a spinal cord injury, but it's usually what I use to explain to people like spinal cord injuries are completely unique, like a thumbprint, right? Like you could have the same level as 7 other people and
yeah,
completely different ability levels. So then translate that over into any illness, chronic illness, whatever. every single person's going to respond differently, but
Mhm.
you can't teach that to an entire classroom full of medical
No.
students. Like you have to teach the baseline or the majority vote essentially of the outcomes of that scenario and say, okay, this is what you have to do. And they triage you. So like
Yeah,
I think that they're doing the best that they can. I think healthcare workers get a really bad rep. I just truly
they
believe that
do.
for me, it is safest for me to like kind of separate myself from the optional unnecessary medical intervention if I
Mhm.
can. So like if I go in for a dislocation, especially in my larger joints, so like a shoulder dislocation, hip dislocation, I very rarely let them put it back. I make them
Mhm.
like accept the x-ray, show it to me, don't tell me what's happening. I need to physically see it, and then I will decide, is this something that I need you to do, or can I go home, relax my muscles, and then put it in myself? And I
Yeah.
get so much backlash about
I
that
was going to
online.
ask if there was a lot of
Oh,
resistance on.
it's sickening. Like people are like, oh, you think that you know more than the medical professional. I'm like, actually, yeah, kind
I
of. That's
mean,
how it
like,
works.
shocker, you know yourself better than any expert. I mean, like, sure, like maybe they know, the technicalities of the diagnosis. And I'm not saying I don't want to discredit the training and expertise some bring, but also like being someone in the biomedical community in the past and doing some of the training and understanding that doesn't make you the end all expert on it. Like the person that's experiencing has to have input. I mean, they know it better than anybody else. And I'm like,
Yeah, and
the fact that there's, you know, backlash over that, like you're just again like the self-entitlement thing.
yeah,
I don't get
privilege,
it.
baby. Privilege. It's wicked. I mean, like, and a lot of people are like, oh, well, you couldn't possibly. That's my other favorite thing that happens is, oh, well, that couldn't possibly be true because XYZ. First of all, your lack of perspective is showing. Your entitlement and privilege is showing.
Yeah,
And if you can't accept that those things are true, then you're never going to get anywhere in learning about what I'm trying to explain to you.
yeah,
But I'm not saying, look how cool it is that I can do this. I'm saying I have put this shoulder specifically back in socket over 1,000 times in the past few
exactly.
years. Yeah, I kind of have some practice. Like, it just,
That reminds me so much too. Like, so I'm somebody that has to have help, transferring from bed to the wheelchair. And like, there's obviously the Hoyer lifts with the slings. And that's just like the presumptive way, like everybody is, it's just assumed can use that approach. And I'm like, I have not found a single sling because of the way like my joints just do not extend
hmm.
or bend a certain way. Like I can't use that. And there's not any kind of adaptive way to do it. And so like I've had to develop a completely different system, with caregivers to get in and out of bed. And it's just like, you know, again, just assuming that, well, this is the only way to handle something is it's just very, very short-sighted.
Yeah,
So
it's been
yeah,
very, very narrow, and it's very
yeah,
hard to like talk to people who think that they've come to the end all be all conclusion of something.
yeah,
And that doesn't even pertain to just disability. I mean, you talk about like reinventing the wheel, and people are suddenly like, oh, we could never do that. It worked for so long. Why change it? And you're like, well, maybe it doesn't work for me personally. And they're like, yeah, but you're the 1%, so who cares? And it's like, what
mm,
do you mean?
that's another problem. That is another problem. Yeah. Wow. That's just like a whole area that's just it's ridiculous to me. I don't get it. And like again, as social media, like sharing our story in that way and stuff. It's like we're putting ourselves out there, and then to have backlash come because of that is just it's craziness. I don't I don't
It's
like it.
exhausting. But
Yeah,
again, there's so many billions and billions of
that's
perspectives
true,
out there. Like you can't change them all. And if someone
and
wants
that's
to
an
learn,
acceptance thing, right? Like,
mhm.
I mean, like you just have to accept that not all people are going to have good intentions, and like it's just yep. I have been really working hard to learn that recently, so
I
it's
think the
nice to
thing
talk
that
to you
like
about that.
yeah, no, and I mean, sorry, it's like breaking up. So if I'm cutting you off, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. But I just think it's important, like, in you saying that and like admitting that it's something that you're learning is huge because once you hit that point, I don't think that there's any going back. Once you receive that perspective of understanding that there just are some people who don't have good intentions, like that is a breaking point. But the one that
Yeah.
is one further that I like encourage everybody to come to terms with, and a lot of people really fight, is I guarantee you, no matter what the reasoning is, whether it is brain chemistry, structure, or the experience that has changed that person's like neurological pathways, essentially, they went through something horrific. People
Mhm.
who are hurt other people. And you get a choice to do that. Whether you decide to evolve or not is on you. But I try my best to empathize with people who are, again, reacting or responding immediately and not thinking about it, because the likelihood is they went through something just as horrible, if not
Mhm.
worse. So just try to, be a person and remember I wouldn't want that to happen
Yeah.
to me. I would want grace too. So just be a human.
Yeah. And that, I mean, that doesn't mean like we make mistakes, obviously. And I mean, that's like, you, as much as you try to empathize, and I feel like we do that a lot as influencers. Like I feel like we absorb a lot of seeing what other people are going through, or, realizing the kind of hurt that you're talking about. And it's a learning process for some of us to figure out how to handle that, and like how to empathize with everybody, even if they have a different opinion. I mean, it's I think it's just a growth thing, to be
Mhm.
honest. And I'm glad that I'm early enough in the social, experience that I'm like, okay, I need to step back and figure this out, because, you know, like it has to shift something about how I move forward, I think, with content too. But I wanted to ask you a little bit about your like on the creative side, like as you've gone along, I know like your symptoms have changed and like your certain abilities have been sort of taken away or adjusted, but like how, as far as creativity and making sure that you have that outlet and that part of your expression is still there, because I mean, it's huge for everything that you're doing. Like, what has it been like trying to make sure that you maintain that creativity?
Yeah, I think that it's something that I'm almost repurposing in my life, so it feels very natural to shift in that way. Just because when I first became quote unquote disabled, right, when I was first recognized as someone who had an actual diagnosis, had an actual physical disability, I was doing the exact same thing I've been doing now. So I was a professional dancer and aerialist on my feet for several years before everything kind of went downhill. And COVID is actually what caused all of the attention to get finally put on my medical situation. And it was because COVID happened. All of my performances and gigs from being a dancer and aerialist got completely shut down and postponed. So I wasn't doing as much physical activity as I was used to doing. And I lost a shit ton of my muscle tone. Like it just went away essentially overnight. I started falling asleep at the wheel, horrible, had
Mm.
to stop working, got a diagnosis of narcolepsy, and in that process, I had to come off of medication that had made me gain weight over time. When all of that weight came off, it came off very suddenly, and it was muscle first. Like my body ate the muscle as a result of coming
So
off
it's like
those meds.
atrophy, basically.
Yeah, so I had extreme atrophy to where I had these teeny tiny calf muscles, and if you held my leg up in the air, it was like a stick and then just like a small little ball hanging
How
as my
fast did that
muscle.
happen?
It was 3 weeks was the initial like come down, and then from there it was about 3 to 6 months where it
Mm.
continued getting worse and worse and worse. But I lost almost half of my body weight. I used to be much larger, again, as a result of meds. And so I got all kinds of people asking me what my secret was, and oh my gosh, what's your weight loss secret? And what do you eat? And what's your journey? And I was like, I'm like ill, like very, very ill. Like it's not
Like
a good
you've
thing.
discovered the magical like secret, but it's like a fucked
Yep.
up price
Become
for
disabled. Like
uh,
I don't like what do you want me to tell you? It is so wild. But anyways,
the secret.
so
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's literally become disabled. Get sick. I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, so that was like my journey. I lost dance, I lost aerial, and it was kind of like all at once. I started getting my diagnoses, and I was essentially trapped up in my apartment because I had lived in a historical building that only had apartments upstairs. And so there was no legal obligation for them to change that. And so I ended up
Mhm.
having to move. I got COVID again, January 2021. And that was the first time I ever like officially got COVID. We're pretty sure I had it before they announced it, but I mean, like, who can actually confirm? When that happened and I moved, it was like what am I going to do? Because like creativity for me is my sanity. It's my therapy.
Mm,
It's how I find a sense of self. It's how I get out all of my emotions that I'm dealing with my disability. And so I turned to like painting, and then I made earrings for like out of clay, all of the trendy things people did during COVID.
right.
And then I like some of them just stuck and I fell in love with doing them. And so whenever I got sick recently in December, I kind of turned towards painting again, and that was something I haven't done in years and fell in love with that. I just started drawing, literally have them with me. So like this is these are all of the things I just started working on in the past few days of like having to be stuck up in bed because I don't know if you've seen it, but I absolutely munched it out of my brand new freaking wheelchair.
I've seen, yeah. Oh my gosh.
Which is hilarious because like when I got sick, I became very careful with how I was handling my
Yeah.
body, and like I was very nervous about the potential of paralysis. Like I've lost 50% of the sensation in my left leg. So I hadn't fallen out of any wheelchair in over 6 months. And of course I get the brand new one, didn't check the tires, and
And
munched
yep.
it. So anyways, this is like what I do now is like this is
I
just on a piece
love
of
that.
paper.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so I've just
And
like
that's all that's watercolor or
no, they're actually markers, which is super accessible. And
oh
like I
wow.
love bragging about it because like you can literally get this for $18 at a Ross, and it's a giant box
That's
of acrylic markers.
yes. It's like the upgraded version of like the 64 crayon box.
Yeah, exactly. I'm an adult now. Give me the good stuff.
I
But
mean the bright color markers, yeah.
yeah, exactly. But I like drew this in the car in the passenger seat. Like it doesn't need to be perfect. It could just be like doodling some stuff. And I think
It's awesome.
giving myself permission to create without perfection has been how I've changed my life. Like, how do you continue your creativity? You do it without the pressure to be
Yeah.
good.
And almost like without the pressure to choose one medium or the other. I mean,
Yep.
like you're like you have the dance and the choreography and everything. That's like there's so much creativity there, but obviously with with what day to day you live with, you can't constantly be doing physical activity. So I just feel like you got to have an outlet somewhere to like put
Yeah.
that expression out there. I mean, like even for me, I even tried some poetry, like just something because when you I mean like I used to do the sculpting and I did oil painting like wildlife and things and when that got taken away it was just like there's this huge void and space to fill. So I think it was really cool for me when I got on and I saw just today your stories about what you're doing with the markers and everything. I'm like that's the ultimate like adaptive creativity, I think.
Yeah, and I think there's also like a permission for yourself, right? Like you have to give yourself
Yeah,
permission to not be like honed in or stuck with one thing. And I don't want to say stuck because I wouldn't feel stuck if I had the capability of doing those things still.
yeah,
But I think there's also just like a nuance in it where even if you're not disabled, you have to adapt your daily life. And I think that's like the biggest misconception that we have and the biggest disconnect we have with like the disability community and the non-disabled community, whatever you want to call them, is that used to teach classes on adapting dance, but I wasn't disabled. This was before I even knew I was disabled. And it's this concept that if you go into a room full of 1,000 dancers at an audition for this pristine company and they put a backflip in that audition choreography, I guarantee you, based on statistics, you're going to get 10 to 20% of those people even capable of doing that. And that's a
mm,
niche down room of professional athletes, right? So, like,
mhm,
then you put that on the population. How many people can realistically do a backflip? You can't.
true.
But then you have to make something work for your body that's just as impressive or captivating or eye-catching in order to stand out in a room of people who can backflip. So if you take that ideology and put it into your daily life, it really changes the way that you think about your opportunity. Because no, I can't do XYZ, but I could do this instead, and it could be just as amazing.
How do you find like for you, like how did you find like this is what's unique, what I want to highlight about me? Like how do you just sort of discover that?
I think being okay with finding 55,000 things that are not the answer. That's how you have to experiment. You have to say, I think I could like this, or oh, God, I think I might hate it, but I'm going to try it once anyways. If you don't put yourself into situations that are uncomfortable, you will never, ever, ever get to find that thing. Like, and maybe you think you have, or maybe you're comfortable with where you're
Yeah,
at. And if that's fine with you and that's the level that you want to, plateau at, that's okay. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But for
right.
me personally, as someone who is an adrenaline junkie and does love performing and creating that empathy through creation, I just believe that, I mean, there's so many things I never thought I'd ever try, and I've
Yeah.
completely fallen in love with them. I sure as hell didn't think I was going to be a contact sport person, but my favorite adaptive sport to this freaking day is wheelchair rugby.
Really
Yeah.
interesting. So you like the all contact sports here.
Didn't think I did, but then I tried
Yeah.
it and fell absolutely in love. But I think it comes from a place of not loving being told what I can and can't do. Because
Yeah.
anytime I go on a rugby court, every single one of the people, they're male. Maybe every now and then I'll play with one other female.
Yeah.
When you're on a court full of just men, typically, not trying to put words in all of y'all's mouths, but typically they're like, oh, well, you don't need to learn all of the rules. It's really hard, so we'll go easy on you. And then I
Okay.
obliterate them, and then they're sad. So it gives me joy.
I could see that. I mean, like the act of proving wrong,
Yeah.
like the assumptions. Yeah, yeah. I get
It
that.
comes down to every part of my being. Art, social media. Literally, the reason why I succeeded in social media is because I had people tell me, oh, well, you need to slow down and you need to be more careful and more mindful because you're just not going to succeed that fast. And then you're just going to break your own heart. And I was like,
Challenge accepted.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
feel that. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, when you were talking about the meds, that was another thing. Like when your body changes based on medication that you have, and I think yours even was for misdiagnosed symptoms, part of it, but like how do you like I had prednisone as part of my treatment regimen as a kid, and like that limited my function, it made me gain weight, all these things. How do you deal with the changes that medications can cause? Because that's like a completely out of your control thing sometimes, right?
Yeah, I think I just think of it like, first of all, I now at this point in my health journey try to put as little medication as I can in my body. I'm not on
Mm,
pain meds. I'm not on any routine medication other than the ones that keep me conscious because narcolepsy. It's like anything that is necessary and is genuinely improving my life, I'm outweighing the benefits. And you know what I mean? Oftentimes you get
yeah.
told, like, well, these benefits outweigh, so therefore take it. And then you just mindlessly take it like a robot. I encourage everybody to assess if you're getting the benefit that you're being told you're going to get from those
Yep.
medications. And if you're not, have a conversation with your doctor. Don't be demanding. You don't need to be so cryptic and
It
pretend that it's
doesn't mean
their idea.
confrontational.
No, but you can just say,
Yeah.
hey, this doesn't feel like it's working for me. What other options do we have? And
Yep.
unfortunately, there are going to be people who just don't have an option. And while that sucks, to me, that's when I apply the mentality that, like, we're all dealt cards and we don't get to just reshuffle and get new cards. So you
Yep.
have to then play those however you desire. Like, if it's going to affect you in a certain way, what is the best that you can make out of that? Or is there something that you can do to combat the symptoms? It's just, I mean, I don't know. I've been left with so many permanent effects of the medications I was put on as a kid that I just deal with it as it comes and I try not to, like, oh, well, if this didn't happen, then this XYZ, because butterfly effect is wicked. And if I was not someone who had become homeless, I wouldn't have a social media following. Period.
Mm.
I wouldn't live in one of the most beautiful cities in California. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have had this conversation with you. Like, I just think if you just
All the things stacked
look on the bright
together
side.
resulted. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Which, I mean, yeah, obviously not everyone looks on the bright side, obviously. But like for me, it's like a lesson in self-advocacy too. And I know that sometimes there's situations we can't control, or we don't even know that we need to be self-advocates with things like prescriptions. But like I can't agree with you like more on that. Like the more control you can take I mean, in a collaborative teamwork type of way with your doctors and medical team and your family, like that's just I feel like something you have to do because there's just so many detriments with medications, and
Yeah.
so many of them I think are designed to just make us use them. Like I don't know that there's so many that don't even fix the symptom that they're supposed to. So I just feel like, that's something that everyone should try to do some due diligence on making sure that they're taking something that's helping what they're going through. I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy how much it changes, what's happening. But yeah, but I'm really glad though, back to the creativity thing, that you found all these outlets to keep going. And I have to ask you, I saw there was a hot air balloon type of shoot that you did. Like what was going on there, and how did that happen?
Yeah, so I sort of on a whim a while back decided like what is my social media going to turn into? What do I want to do with my social media and what impact can I have? And I think like in that ebb and flow period of like my health was taking a hit, I was learning myself all over again. It's like I'm not getting any younger. My ability level isn't just going to magically snap and be, fantastic tomorrow. I have lots of ebb and flow, but I still want to enjoy my life. So everything that we've talked about up until this point in the conversation has been very synonymous with like the mentality I was in when I came up with this project. But I've just officially launched my 30 before 30 list, which has 29 things on it, and I'm letting my followers pick the last one. Blessed be my soul, because I have a crazy following and I'm not
That
really
sounds
certain what they're gonna
dangerous.
pick. But the hot air balloon ride was one of the item list numbers. That was number two. It's the only one that's been checked off so far. And my list is kind of asinine. So like hot air balloon was pretty minor on the list of things. I have some things that I have genuinely no clue how I'm gonna pull
Is
off.
this like
Like
a bucket list?
it's kind of like a bucket list, but just before I turn 30. I
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so it's just like 30 things that I want to accomplish or finish before I turn 30 years old, which
How
will
much
be
time do you
in
have?
I have 9 months. I have
That's
9 freaking months,
that's
so
not
I'm
a
a
lot.
bit
That
nuts.
is not a lot.
No, and it essentially boils down to doing four things on my list, like aiming to do four, because I know there'll be
Yeah.
some months I won't be able to per month. And I'm kind of counting the hot air balloon one for this month since I freaking hurt myself doing it. It's gonna have to count as this one, but it still works out math wise. But yeah, I have everything
Yeah.
from like taking up a ceramics, like a pottery class, pottery wheel, to skydiving with my grandmother. So
Wow.
yeah,
That's a big difference.
a very large difference. And then there's things where it's like people specific. My mom
Okay.
like desperately wants to meet Matt Rife. I think he's a great comedian. I love how inclusive he is. I like that he includes disabled people in his crowd and actually interacts with them. So I have on my list to teach Matt Rife how to wheelie. That one I can tell you right now, I'm not sure if I'm going to pull it off, but boy, am I going to try.
Do you have a backup plan for the ones that you don't pull off?
So I'm actually sitting down with my fiance after this podcast of all things, and we're gonna kind of like hash out which ones we think we can get done in which months, make a like legitimate game plan because it's had to shift from
Hmm.
before.
Well, I was
And
gonna
then if
say that
there's
requires
anything,
some planning.
yeah, exactly. So if there's anything that's like I'm not really sure if I'm gonna be able to do this, we'll either shift it just a little bit or we'll do it after my birthday. The goal is obviously to do them all before I turn 30, but like the Matt Rife thing is so specific that maybe it's teach a comedian how to do a wheelie on stage. Like
Ooh.
I don't know yet, but I'm just very, very stubborn.
I love
And
that though that you
I'm
can like just slightly pivot it, right? Like it's in the
yeah,
same vicinity of that event. Yeah.
yeah. And I mean I'm the one who made it. So like there's no rules. I make the
Fair.
rules.
Yeah.
But I just want to
No,
be
you're
able to show people
following
that it's
demands. You
possible.
have to, yeah. Yeah, you're following demands, Allie. You have to stay on structure. Like you have to have it scheduled.
Yep.
Yeah,
Sometimes that's how my life feels, man. And then I remember that I'm the boss, so it is what it is. I
true.
think a lot of people also don't realize like I do everything on my page. My fiance sometimes is holding a camera, and
Yeah,
that's literally it. I do all of the scheduling,
absolutely. And
planning,
all of those
editing.
things take a lot of time and work.
Yeah,
And not all of
yeah,
us are privileged enough to have like video editor or producer or like
yep.
it's all self-generated content.
Yep,
Yeah,
I don't have a
yeah,
manager. I don't even have an agent. Like people are like, "Oh, well, then how did you get in the Apple commercial?" Like they found me. Like
yeah.
I genuinely am running on fumes constantly. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I have to ask, is there any food related items on that 30 list?
I actually do have one, and it's to
Okay.
eat at the best Vegas buffet. And I think I
Ooh.
have a Michelin star. I have the list in front of me, actually. It's written down in my handy dandy notebook that
Oh,
I
so there's
carry
proof.
everywhere. Yep. Let's see. Yeah, I have that one, which is just says best buffet because I'm not really sure which one the best one is, but we're
Mhm.
gonna figure it out. And then I do have Michelin star restaurant on here. And
Okay.
then my favorite food related one, which I'm not sure if you've ever heard of this, is a meal in the sky. Do you know what that is?
No, but it sounds like you're eating something while, I don't know, while skydiving, anything crazy like
Not quite
okay.
skydiving. It is a essentially small restaurant that is dangled by a blimp.
What? And
So you
like
have a meal in the sky.
nice. And what
Yeah.
like I'm just envisioning like a flock of birds or like a thunderstorm happening while like candlelight dinner at the same time. That's
Yeah, no.
fantastic.
It's like they have to go off of weather conditions and things like that.
Yeah.
Similar, the hot air balloon was the same thing. We got very lucky that that worked out. Um,
Did you fly in
but yeah,
it? Yeah, nice. And
yeah.
how was that like actually
It
going
was
up?
it was glorious, first of all. The guy that runs the actual pilot for the balloon, because they're called pilots,
Yeah.
he is one of the most down-to-earth human beings I've ever met in the adaptive world, and him and I are actually working together on a project. This will be the first time I'm talking about it, so enjoy this drop totally being on your podcast, but
Sneak preview.
sneak preview. Yeah, we're actually going to be planning an event local to Southern California
Yeah,
where we're going to be having adaptive hot air balloons do what's called tethered rides. So it won't necessarily be like a free flight where you go land somewhere else, but it gives people the opportunity to get past that fear of like getting in a floating device with your chair because it's fully adapted.
me. I
So
have
it
that fear.
yeah, hey, power chairs fit in it. It's really freaking
Really?
cool. Fully
Okay.
adapted basket. Roll your
I
power
gotta
chair
look at
right up in
this.
there. And then it would go up and then back down. And then the next person gets in and gets to try it. And the whole concept with this event is that we will be able to use it as a fundraiser to raise enough money to create the world's first ever high occupancy, fully adapted hot air balloon basket. There is zero baskets in the world that exist where you can have more than one power chair
I
user in
believe
at the same
that.
time. So yeah, I'm also pitching Red Bull and like doing all of these things to try
That
and
is
make this happen.
fantastic. So
Yeah.
I have to make a recommendation. Have you seen the Balloon Fiesta or heard of it?
No.
Because it's this huge thing in New Mexico. In fact, like besides Breaking Bad, it's like one of the few things that New Mexico's known for. Um, but it's like this huge event every fall where they have
Okay.
like these mass ascensions of hot air balloons, and like people come all over the world to do it every year. And back when I lived there, there was actually one that had to land close to where I lived, and they like it was unplanned, right? Like they had to make like a forced landing and actually they deflated the balloon and packed it up there and everything. But yeah, like if you are into hot air ballooning, that's an event to think about checking out.
And it's called what?
The Balloon Fiesta.
Cool. I think that
Yeah,
the guy that I went with would probably know what it is.
I
He's
bet
actually
so. I bet
currently
so.
traveling to, I think it's Oregon, to go do an event there. And he was like, yeah, like ballooners, we kind of all know each other. So I feel like he
Yeah,
probably knows what it is.
I
But
bet he knows
yeah,
about it. Yeah, yeah.
the craziest part about this challenge, though, like making the event happen in Southern California, is the niche nuance of all of this would be my brand new wheelchair that I just got is created to do acro and aerial. So I can be fully picked up and gyroscoped and I won't come out of it. It can also be hooked up to lines and dangled from the sky.
Are there
So
like seat belts to like keep you in place?
yeah,
Okay.
three sports ratchet straps. One goes across my hips, one across my knees, and one across my feet. And they're specialized to be like fit perfectly in my body.
Yeah.
Um, then there's also just like holds on the actual wheelchair. There's like welded pieces of it that are safe enough to be rigged and hold weight
Mhm.
and all of these different things. So I like put all of my expertise together with hands-on concepts and they built this chair for me. But when we pitch Red Bull, fingers crossed, we're not pitching just the basket. We're pitching
Mhm.
for them to create a Red Bull hot air balloon, the basket itself, and hang me from underneath the basket and do air.
Wow.
So it'll have to
That's
happen most
cool.
likely in Brazil because from what we found, it's the only place that we can get to like legally allow us to do something like that. But that's why we need money and we need a sponsor like Red Bull.
Yeah, I can imagine. Wow.
It'll be the
Yeah.
first time it's ever happened. So
I
Guinness World Record, here I come.
Yep, exactly. Hey, that's part of the 30, right? Like
Yep.
maybe something on the Guinness. Yeah. Yeah. And I was just thinking too, like I've been into this big like food kick lately on YouTube, watching things like I don't know if you've seen the hot ones where they do the hot wings like with celebrities and things like that. Yeah. But like I'm kind of all about that scene. So like your like up in the air, dinner thing sounds really cool.
Yeah, and I'm excited to do things on my list that are not accessible because I don't presume that that experience is going to be accessible. But I have
So
like leg braces coming, so I'll be able to go on it without my wheelchair and then hopefully use that as an opportunity to explain why it is important to have adaptive options and have a platform that chairs can roll onto.
absolutely.
So that's kind of like the goal with the like in between pieces of this list.
And I love that you're looking at like manual and power chairs too, because like that's another huge thing that's lost. I feel like is, there's so many different adaptive chairs that,
Yeah.
very rarely is something accessible to all of or most of them.
Yeah, and
So
the cool thing
that's
about, I didn't even mention, thank you for saying that, but the hot air balloon I went in, the guy was mentioning he has a balloon that will take an entire hospital bed. So if someone's on,
really
yeah, like they're, like you've seen those power chairs, right? They're literally
absolutely.
just a bed.
And
You
there's
can
some
take them in
that
the
you're
hot air balloon.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that are just like laying completely horizontal that way.
Hmm.
I love that. Like that's the ultimate like I guess I don't know, flipping off the one size fits all thing, right? Like you're
Yeah.
like anything, right? Like any angle, any way people are have to orient themselves in a chair,
Yep.
like
And then
that
like,
should be
you know,
considered.
and then accessibility, like a lot of the times I think we get very one note in the wheelchair community where it's like we only think
Absolutely.
about like the physical limitations that it comes with it. But I mean, I'm working with him now on getting like a sensory bag for people who struggle with any sensory input, making sure that there's some kind of interpretation possibility for someone who is deaf, blind, or deaf-blind together. Like it's just I think a really cool opportunity to have a conversation with someone who's spearheading accessibility and the adventurous side of things, who
Yeah.
is willing to absorb all of this information. So being someone who can, provide that in between conversations has been really nice, but it's also why I try to keep like such an open mind with like being wrong, right? I'm gonna make mistakes and I'm not gonna be able to jump in the perspective of everyone else. So I
Yeah.
try to just make my page like a space where people can say, hey, I love that you spoke about this, but it's not fully accessible to my needs. So I just wanted you to know that. Whereas sometimes people are like, you're such a bitch, you didn't even consider me. And I'm like I'm doing my best, and like
I
I can only
mean,
do so much. So yeah.
again, like that's I mean, that is like you've said, and it's like the theme throughout here is like you're willing to take chances and push the edges, but that's how accessibility and how like adaptive technology should be achieved, in my opinion. Like the only way you're going to be able to do it is like attack the problem and see like, well, what if it crosses over between, deaf and blind, or like what like comorbidities like are just such a big part of the disabled and chronic illness communities. I feel like that's you're not going to encompass everybody,
No,
but the more you do, the more you will discover, and then in turn
exactly.
you can pivot and modify it. So like
And
that's
honestly, that's so funny you say that because it really just brings me back to the concept of people not thinking people not thinking that I'm disabled. Let's say, God forbid, that I really was just lying about this, which is fucking crazy because how would I keep all of that straight when I can't even remember what I ate for breakfast? But I digress. If for some reason I was faking, is it really that bad that someone were to come into the community and try all of these things so that other people have ways to experience life? Like
Mhm,
it's so wild to me that people are so quick to point a finger and say she's stealing from us
mhm.
when my main goal is to make all of these experiences as accessible as possible. People are like, oh, well, you're doing that, but it's not accessible for me. And I'm like, yeah, but that's the goal. That's the point. It's like,
Maybe it's
unless
going to
they
lead
know,
there.
yeah, and unless those people who are like curating those experiences know that you want that opportunity and that there's enough people that want that opportunity, they would never know to even try. It's like we
Yeah.
have to start the conversation somehow.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. And like that, this is like adaptive engineering, to be honest. Like that's, and it's cool to see someone actually like in action trying to do these things instead of like for me, I have concepts or ideas like, oh, well, maybe we could try this, but like you're taking that, but actually trying, like physically trying it with the wheelchair and the restraints, like that's and then you're going to like the one place where it's legal for you to experiment with it. It's like that's that kind of I am not that bold.
You
But
have
no,
to be a little, you gotta have a few screws loose, which I definitely do, but it's fine, right? It works. I always joke, but I just mean like I've dealt with so many things in my life that like I
yeah.
want to enjoy the most thrill that I possibly can and also like give other people permission who feel like they need that
Mhm.
type of permission to go do the same thing. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
need to look like what I'm doing, but as humans, we are allowed to just go and do and be. And
Push
unless
the
you take
edge.
that leap, then
Yeah.
you'll never know what you're missing out on.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, I can totally see like that, like your approach is the way that things are going to get improved and modified, I think. So it's really cool to hear like that 30 list has me very intrigued to see more for sure.
Yeah, it's on my page. If you go to the most recent hot air
Yeah.
balloon one that I did, it looks like a little Polaroid. You
Yeah.
swipe and the whole list there. So if anybody wants to go check it out, it is there. I'm open to ideas. I'm gonna need help throughout the list.
Yeah.
So if someone knows how they can help me get through to one of those things, please God, let me know. I do not have it all figured out. I am winging it. That's kind of how I do all of my
Yep.
content.
Yep.
But yeah, I'll have like an official hot air balloon event, like post coming soon of me actually in the
Yeah.
balloon. I did a wheelie in the balloon. We did all kinds of stuff.
That's
So yeah,
cool.
yeah,
That's really cool. Yeah, now I'm gonna like be looking at power chair accessible balloons. That's
yeah, man.
sweet.
Hey, come to California. We've got one. So maybe
Yeah.
there's a conversation that needs to happen, and we'll
Hey,
try and get you out for that event.
yeah, that sounds really cool. So final icebreaker, and I really appreciate you taking the time. I know it's like you've got so many things planning and going on with this event and everything, but like, um, so as like someone with disability and chronic illness history, I'm always like interested in music, like if that means a lot to people. So I'm curious what your like, do you have a current sort of go-to song right now? Is there one you've had in the past? Like what are your interests in that area look like?
Oh gosh, my music taste is obscenely
Diverse.
eclectic. It is very diverse. I tell people as a joke to just like fully explain it. I saw it on TikTok a long time ago, is that I am very polyamorous. I will listen to pretty much anything
I know
genre-wise.
that term.
Yeah. But I don't know. There's God, and see, this is also the worst thing about me is people are like, oh, who's your favorite celebrity or what's your favorite song? My memory is so crap, but it's
Yeah.
specifically around names of people and things. However, I just really gravitate towards songs that motivate me to get to where I'm going.
Mhm.
So whether that's like women empowerment or just like breaking free of your own biases, like anything that makes me physically feel something is typically what I gravitate towards in music.
Yeah.
So it's literally different every single day. It's like, what do I feel like
In
my
the moment.
energy needs today? Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So like what was it today?
Literally nothing because I was drawing, my fiance was driving, and that means he's DJ, not me.
Ah, nice,
You know,
nice.
it's funny you say this. I feel like I get this question a lot. I never really have a good answer, so maybe I
Mm.
need to just like start putting what I'm listening on my story or something because I
Hey, honestly, you
never have a
could
good
just do
answer.
like I do like a guest Spotify playlist of like songs and stuff. So like, like that's if you want to share songs, like I think our community loves that kind of thing. So yeah,
Absolutely, yeah.
I would
No,
love to
and I
see
mean
that.
like once we hop off this, I can send you whatever the
Yeah,
most recent thing is that I was listening to because I'm just
sweet.
I'm clueless and I'm recording this on my phone, so.
Nice. That sounds like a plan. I'll make sure I like to use it for like the Instagram music for the podcast episode. So yeah,
So
yeah, I'll do that. Well, Ali, I sure appreciate it. It's been really awesome. Looking forward to sharing, this conversation and then finding out what you're up to next. I think it's